Yeah, Scott, you can start speaking.
Okay, great. Well, thank you everyone for logging in today. Excited to be here with GMAT Club to talk through some success profiles. So 5 successful candidates. How do they crack the M7? So thanks everyone for logging in. As we go through, please feel free to like or dislike different portions, throughout this process. That helps us on our end and continually improve content. So I know I did a video not too long ago. Some of you may have seen that already, but I'll go through a little bit of background about myself in case anyone watching has not met me before. My name is Scott Edinburgh. I'm the founder of Personal MBA Coach. We were a boutique admissions consulting and tutoring business. A little bit of my background, I went to MIT for undergrad, where I studied economics and business at Sloan and was a TA for one of the MBA courses as an undergrad. And this intro will be 2 minutes, and then we'll get on to the content. And I worked at Deloitte. I worked in consulting within mergers and acquisitions, did a lot of M&A deals across the world. I went to Wharton for my MBA and picked Wharton because I had taken 2 summers of economics classes when I was in high school at Wharton, liked the curriculum and wanted to go back for the MBA. And I also wanted to do real estate. So picked Wharton for real estate. When I was there, I founded Personal MBA Coach, and I can go into more of that story later on or privately with anyone. But essentially helped one of my best friends get into one of his target schools, and then helped another one get into Harvard, and then Wharton, and the list kind of goes on. Some top rankings as far as myself and kind of where I place in the admissions consulting industry, and then high success rates and a lot of scholarships that applicants get. So a little bit more about what we do at Personal MBA Coach. So we offer end-to-end services anywhere from if you're a few months before applying to schools to a few years. We can help you to think through your stories, what parts of you to improve, doing better extracurriculars, and creating overall more polished image, making sure to fill in the gaps between where you are and where you need to be when you're submitting applications. We offer private tutoring, GMAT, GRE, and executive assessment, one-on-one tutoring. We have tutors around the world, and we have former top 10 admissions director on our team. Myself, I'm on the board of directors for the Association of International Graduate Admissions Consultants. We do a lot of things throughout the year that I can chat about perhaps a little bit later on. But we even evaluate applications each year with AdCom directors and kind of think through which types of people will be getting in and not getting in. We have a large team of former M7 interviewers. So one of the reasons our clients get into so many M7 programs is we have people that used to interview for the schools that are on board to help folks prepare for the interviews, and then clients to network with at every top school and have an alumni networking sort of network that we're creating internally to help people to better connect and build their own careers. So cracking the M7, for those of you who don't know what M7 is, Magic 7, they're top business schools. And the list tends to not change that much. One thing I'll say before diving into this is relevant even if you're not applying to an M7 school. So if you are applying to an M7 school, or you want to be applying to an M7 school at some point, this is of course relevant. But even if you're not, these are candidate stories from people who've done well in the process. And it's helpful even if you're applying to school just outside of the M7. And you shouldn't only be focused on M7, right? There are a lot of great schools, and there are more than 7 different ways to kind of create your own perfect career path. So these candidates crack this M7, right, by using a story. Often it was a compelling story to overcome their own challenges. And so we'll go through some challenges, we'll go through some stories. One thing to note, just based on the way that technology works with these videos, as you like or dislike throughout the video, please save questions. Write down the questions. We will be answering all the questions at the end. It's just kind of the way we're project the video and then answer questions. So ask lots of questions. We'll answer them all at the end. And depending on where you are and when you're watching this, if you're watching this delayed and you have questions and you're like, ooh, I couldn't ask Scott because he's not here anymore, you can always send me an email, just Scott, SCOTT, at personalmbacoach.com. Okay, so success story 1. So here's a profile GPA was 3.4. Now this is out of a 4.0 scale. GRE 330, 4 years of work experience working in consulting. So far you're thinking, ooh, this is kind of boring. Why should I even be tuning into this? There's something better that I can be doing. Well, one of the things we did is, put a profile that, I don't want to say boring, but is not all that differentiated. Okay, so a white female, studied in an Ivy League school, consultant with 4 years of experience, decent GRE score, decent GPA. This is what we're working with. This is what we're starting. Definitely a good potential profile for a top business school, but nothing that jumps out to say, oh, this is absolutely candidate for, an M7. We can't let this person go because of XYZ. So then we talk about some challenges, right? First of all, some previous rejections. Now, this was not with the Personal MBA Coach, but applied on their own, did not get in. Again, average stats, common background, a lot of different, puzzle pieces, let's say. And this is something that we have to overcome. So schools accept a lot of consultants. And you might say, what's wrong with the 330 GRE and, consulting? Well, it's just that they have a lot of people that, have these profiles, right? And so last time we talked about how to stand out if you're coming from an overrepresented background. To some extent, this is overrepresented. Maybe not from a demographic standpoint, but certainly from the work experience standpoint. So here's our approach, and kind of a funny picture here as well. Square to square to square to square with arrows. So one, we dug into the family history. Now, family, excuse me, family is sometimes important, but often not really that relevant. And the reason I say this, I'll take a pause to talk about family for a minute. There's sometimes a temptation to discuss family. My mother did these things. I have 3 sick grandmothers all on one side, and they've overcome 7 illnesses. And it sounds like this really moving story. I don't know if that's possible. But at the end of the day, right, what does this matter for you? And so usually when we talk about family, when we do our initial brainstorming sessions and I talk through applicants' passions and hobbies and challenges, and we figure out what their stories are, family is a component, but it's always a component I'm somewhat hesitant to dive into. In this case, we talked about family history, we talked about extracurricular work, we talked about passions. I tried to learn everything I could about this individual and find some common themes, right? What is one thing that we might write about that could be interesting to an admissions director? We actually identified art as a theme that we were able to use to kind of weave through essays and goals. And you might say, art, Scott, that has nothing to do with business school. Why should I care? Well, we should care because it was relevant for this person. And so we should be nice and care. But also, jokes aside, we should care because it was a little bit of a differentiated theme. Now, I'll say differentiated carefully because you don't really need to differentiate everything about you. Often I have applicants that say, okay, let's do our goals brainstorming. I really want to differentiate myself. So I have this goal. I'm going to be a one-handed chicken farmer in South Africa feeding water bottles to chickens. And I'm going to start a new business that way. I think, very cool, but one, I'm not investing in you. And two, that makes no sense. Why don't you just talk about going into consulting, right? So you don't have to differentiate your goals necessarily to get into school. You get in by having just a good story and a clear story and an effective story. But if you can have some theme about you, and it could be a personal interest that's just a little bit unique, that might help. So in this case, art was that theme. Now I had another client, actually I could have used him as a slide too. Another client who talked about art investing, and there was a little bit of family background around art investing. But long story short, investing in art was an interest of this person, and he talked about it during the applications in a way to, let's say, be a little bit different from the average person. So anyway, back to this particular client. We tied the passion for arts and to some extent family background into some different aspects of the story. And we came away with an interesting takeaway. So the short-term goal was strategy consulting, but for some art clients. And long-term goal was an art consulting. So it's a different angle, right? It's not something that everyone has written about. We talked about working for a local gallery as part of like, the extracurricular story. And we wanted to really use our business exposure, being vague to keep it a little bit confidential, use our business exposure to drive efficiency in the art world. And so the art world is a world that historically has been driven by passion, motivation, art, intelligence, not necessarily efficiency. And so there's a lot that can be improved about the industry in general. And this particular applicant was interested in improving some of these aspects. So this ended up being a really cool story that resulted in Chicago booth admit and $150,000 in scholarship. And I feel like using that element of art was really a key component of this success, because without that, we might have just had a standard path. So that's one example. Success story number two, and any questions that you have, write this down, and love to answer the questions at the end about all these. And we can even flip back and say, tell me about story number one, and we can kind of chat about that. So success story number two, right? Here's someone, you can guess where they're from. The GPA is out of 10, but I'll leave it there. GPA is out of 10. We had an 8, 760 GMAT. So strong score, 3 years of work experience. So work experience was kind of low, doing investment banking, male, non-target international school. So what do we have here, right? We have a common background, meaning investment banking. We have limited experience, meaning just 3 years of experience. And at the end of the day, we have to think about, is a school going to want to take someone with an investment banking background and 3 years of experience? And I like to talk as much as I can in these presentations, just to give more context for what we think through and how we kind of decide things as a firm. And years of experience is a common question we get on a lot of our intro calls. It's, okay, Scott, am I ready? Is now the right time? And I remember the call with this gentleman, when we started, and he said, am I ready? Is now the right time? And I said what I'll say to many of you if you reach out and we chat. I said, look, man, you can certainly apply now. You are qualified to get in. You have what they're looking for. I feel like we might have some success. But if you wanted the absolute best time to apply, it would probably be not today. It would probably be in another year or two when you could matriculate with 4 or 5 years of experience. And there's a lot of back and forth, a lot of questions around, but what about this? But what about that? What if I still want to do it anyway? What will this mean, for me and reapplication and all that? And at the end of the day, we settled on just applying anyway. However, 3 years of experience was something that was a little bit tricky. It's just on the lower side. So what do? We found some cool pictures. I don't really know what these pictures are, but anyway. So we emphasize extracurriculars to help this candidate shine. Now, in this case, working in investment banking is great. It's good work. A lot of analytical skills are developed in banking. You have to be smart. You work long hours, working with folks across many different wavelengths, let's say. But the work experience itself is not super varied. And so sometimes bankers come to me and they say, oh, here's a resume, Scott. I have 6 different deals. And I did this, $1 billion carve out of XYZ. I did this $200 billion thing of here. I created a 3 gazillion trillion deal with doing X number of, and at the end of the day, I'm thinking, who cares? Like, what is the relevance? You're doing banking work, you're having the projects. At some point, if you start writing bullet after bullet about all the transactions, the reader's just going to get bored. We won't really care by the time we get to the second one what the third, fourth, and fifth one looks like if the only differences are size of the deal, industry. So you have to think about like what other things about you're telling them. And sometimes there's really not much else to tell, and sometimes there is. So if you are someone who, let's say, has done a lot of like firm initiatives, recruiting or mentorship, whatever it may be, it doesn't matter. And you can write about some of that. You want to get a little bit creative in terms of what you're discussing, even if that means I'm leaving out, 3 of the top 10 deals that I've done and they're like really good. So that's a little bit of a digression, but hopefully hopefully helpful for those of you that might fall into this category. In this case, we focused on the extracurriculars and thought about the volunteer work that we did, and we actually tied it to goals to some extent to tell a story. Now, to take a step back, you do not have to tie volunteer work to goals. I often hear, okay, if I'm doing this outside of work, does this need to be exactly what I'm doing in a post MBA goal at some point in my career? Absolutely not. And one of the mistakes that people make is often doing that. So I see an application, actually, I talked to someone today who has a strong academic profile, a very specific type of work experience, and really cool extracurriculars, and said, great, let's have my goal be that I want to get into social impact investing in Africa. And I said, I think that's bullshit. You're not really convincing me, and you hired us. So how are we going to convince someone else? And at the end of it, we just decided to change the plans. The only reason for that social impact focus was it seemed cool to this applicant. It seemed like it was something that might sell. But we talked about it back and forth and decided, what, that's actually not the best thing for you. And one of the things that was nice is we got to a set of goals and a story that was better for that person. It had nothing to do with extracurriculars. It had nothing to do with helping people. That just wasn't their key focus. And that's okay, right? So don't feel the need to tie in all this volunteer work to your story. You're not applying to a social impact MBA. You're applying to an MBA. And maybe you focus on something social, maybe you don't. But in this case, we did tie volunteer work to help tell a story. And what was interesting is, we kind of like went against the grain, despite the experience. So what this did is it showed the ability for this applicant to take a leadership role. And really, I could have deleted this whole slide and just said, we used examples of leadership outside of the workforce to show that this person is capable of being a leader and has had experience being a leader, even though they haven't been a leader at work. And that's important sometimes if you don't have many years of work experience under your belt. So that's what we did, and MIT and Harvard. So there you go. Now, success story number 3. Here is a white female, an Ivy League institution, 3.8 GPA. This is out of 4.0. 700 GMAT, pretty good GMAT. The quant score, I'm not saying quant score here just to keep it somewhat easy and quick, but quant score was fine. I think it was like 48 or 49. So about the average. The average quant score for a lot of these top schools is around 49. We had 4 years of experience, decent experience in consulting / medical field, let's say. So a mix of both. So the challenge here was the GMAT score, right? 700. Now, 700 is not horrible. Plenty of people get into top schools with 700, but if you are a consultant and you're looking for an M7 and you have a 700, that's below average. I mean, for sure, that's below average. Now, the lowest score that I can think of for round 1 that we got folks into M7 was from the consulting background, was a 670. From other backgrounds, that's different. I mean, a lot of people do very cool things and overcome long arcs. But consulting wise, we had a 670 get into Columbia. I don't think that's a profile we'll talk about today, but we'll see as the slides go on. I don't think so, but we had a 670 get into Columbia, and if we talk about it, then you'll hear a little bit more. But this particular one was a 700 GMAT score. Now, what did we do here, right? So first of all, this is someone who was like just a really genuinely strong applicant, like a great person. I loved working with this person. Just a really, really like top quality person. The reason I mention this is schools are accepting an applicant. And if you take nothing away from this presentation besides some learnings and lessons, it's easy to say this to whoever's watching this. It's just to be nice, right? Be nice, appear nice. It's just helpful in the world. Now, if you're interacting with an administrative assistant or you're talking to students on campus, be humble, be calm, be nice. I don't always see that. We don't always see applicants do that. Some people get on blacklists for things that they're doing. Just be nice. It's really important. So anyway, that's a little bit of an aside. as my fatherly instinct kicks in. So what we did, we emphasized, her unique undergraduate background. Now, she studied something that most people don't study. I think that was important for the school she will ultimately go to, which you'll see in a minute. Um, we focused on, goals and post consulting experience, and we dug into some motivators behind, telling this compelling story. So it was around health, and it was around doing something specific with health in a particular part of the healthcare industry. And again, it wasn't hugely differentiated. It's not like I'm going to build 1,000 hospitals in Africa, and here's how I'm going to do it. It was just more around the ideas in general that this person was interested in and the way that she thought about them. And so, honing in on that was important. Now, what we did was we ignored a lot of things. We ignored a lot of things that this person, did in their career. And if you think about my application, for instance, so I went to MIT for undergrad and Wharton for the MBA and worked in consulting in between. I ignored a lot of what I did in consulting in my application. The benefit of consulting is you can do that. Even in many jobs, you can probably ignore some of the things you do. But certainly if you're in some kind of a service industry, you can perhaps not pay too much attention to some things that you're doing and then focus the time on other things. So the results, accepted to Harvard and Wharton, and with a scholarship too. So, fantastic results. This particular person only applied to 2 schools. Usually we see applications to 5 to 7. So on average, you want to really be doing 5 to maximize. We got into both of the schools that they applied to, and with the 700 GMAT. And so that's a really, really big success. Harvard rejects people with 790. So, for us, that was a nice win. Success story number 4. So here's a 730 with 2 years of experience in trading. Trading is not a good pre-MBA path. It's not bad, of course. It's one of my success stories, but it's not the best. Indian female, and studied at an leading international institution in India. I have to keep it somewhat anonymous here for obvious reasons. So some challenges here for this particular person was, earning a scholarship with average test scores and limited experience. So they wanted a scholarship. They didn't want to pay for school. And a lot of our clients get tons of scholarship dollars. So we get many more times than the average. Now, if we flip back, 730 GMAT, 3 years of experience in trading. So, scores are fine score, but nothing that we might write home about. Experience is a little bit light. Okay, so now what, right? We had to, tie the goals to the personal experience, and talk about leading despite being underrepresented in her industry. So this ended up being really, really kind of passionate, I feel like, because leading in an industry where you're not really appreciated is tough. And sometimes if we're working in consulting and we're the head of like 17 committees, it's kind of easy to lead. But what if you're working in an industry where no one really cares about you? You're not the most important person. There aren't many people that look like you, and just trying to stick with it and hang in there is tough, right? And I know some of you might fall into this category. If you don't fall into this category, think of someone who does. Think about how you can help that person. But for those of you who do fall into this category, think about what you can do from a leadership perspective. So I talked to someone, actually a new client this week. We're working on round 1 applications, and we talked about the fact that they were new in their company, and most people were not new. So, they've been there for a few months or so, and the average tenure is like 10 to 15 years. Some like, really, really high number. So there just aren't really, lots of new people in the organization. And we talked about how this person might be a leader and what they might do, to, show some leadership skills. And it was a little bit tricky, but what we got to was actually a strategy around creating a new onboarding kind of mentorship program for other people who are new, since that didn't really exist in the company. So anyway, that's just another example here. But at the end, so this particular person was focused on being a leader despite being underrepresented. And so got to a booth in Michigan with 160,000 in combined scholarships. So what was good about this was we were able to showcase her communication skills and the unique way that she made people that came from a background like hers matter at work. Now, what we didn't do was talk about analytical skills. We didn't really talk about extracurricular leadership and strength that much. What we focused on was the specific thing that we did to help. Now, another example, and I could have used this as a slide. So I had a client who worked at Schlumberger. She won't care, so it won't be confidential. Worked at Schlumberger and had a really cool story. I won't tell you her personal story, but had a really cool personal story that showed some triumph across a number of different international markets. And that personal story ended up being a huge part of her overall kind of message. Now, what was interesting was we focused on a lot of other leadership things, but this personal story was really what allowed her to shine. She faced certain things that happened that should never have happened. We talked about that. She got to Harvard Business School, did fantastic. She's since sent 10 clients from Schlumberger to us over the years, which has been a lot of fun. But I still remember that one story. When I first heard it, I thought, really not relevant to business school at all, but it's relevant to you and your character. It's relevant to triumph that you've overcome. It's relevant to, how you think about things, how you structure success. In any case, this person graduated from Harvard. Success story number 5, 3.4 GPA, 750 GMAT. So you'll actually see this person. We're going to be doing videos on our website, so personalmbacoach.com. We'll be doing some videos and featuring this guy, nice guy. So 3.4, 750 GMAT, 5 years of experience. Works in automotive industry. Nepalese male, and went to a top 30 undergrad school. So, okay, good GMAT score, slightly low GPA. At the end of the day, we are a male engineer with an average GPA and a good GMAT score. So what are we doing to shine? Now, one thing that was nice about working with this applicant was we started early. We probably start with maybe around a third of our clients or so, maybe a little less, through our early planning packages, which are designed to help you to improve your profile between now and when you apply to school. Some people sign up now for the fall, and we spend a focused 3 hours of time to just improve everything that we have, versus comprehensive packages are, okay, Scott, here's what I have. Now let's perfect that. So I worked with this applicant in a period of time leading up to the application to really just beef up things, because everything that he had was around automotive. And, that was an initial concern on his part. It's not something that ended up really being a big concern at the end of the day, but we had to think through, what is the story that we're telling? Do we want everything to be automotive? If it is, what kind of leadership do we want to project here? And so, that ended up being a big part of the strategy was developing extracurriculars. So we started organization leadership work. We took like junior board level responsibilities. I helped him to think through a new nonprofit thing that he should be doing on the side. I just kind of compared what he had against everyone else. And one thing that's nice about, me doing that is I can just say, look, this is what works, this is what doesn't work. And really helped him to think about what he needed to do to improve. Then we had a series of follow-up calls where we pushed on that and said, well, let's do more of this. Let's do more of that. Have you gotten into these schools? Like, have you done this thing? Kind of like a cheerleader to, push and recommend. And we actually doubled down on the goals. In this case, the goals were unique. Now, I don't think that necessarily the success was because of the unique goal. I think that, the reason I talk about doubling down on the unique goals is because we weren't concerned with having something that might not be well understood. We talked about what he wanted to do within the industry. We talked about what he was doing. So self-driving cars. I don't know if this picture shows self-driving cars or not, but it shows cars. We're working on self-driving cars, and there's a lot to do in this technology. Maybe by the time you're watching this video, all the cars are self-driving, which would be really cool. Send me an email if that's the case. But at this point, at least as of today, they're not, and they're expensive, and there's a lot of issues, and there's lots of risks and things like that. And so, there was something very specific that he wanted to do within this industry. And what was nice is in all the interviews that he was able to, dive deep into what this might be and answer questions and talk about that, talk about how he's unique, talk about what he's done in the space. So it was really, really focused on his particular niche, let's say. So the result is got accepted to Wharton and Kellogg. I think he's leaning towards Wharton now. I have to check. I don't believe he's formally accepted Wharton yet. I think he's leaning towards it. But those are his top choice schools. We did 5 or 6 schools together. These were, he's gone elsewhere, but these were the top 2 schools, Wharton and Kellogg, and, worked out quite well for him. So a little bit about where our folks go. We have clients that get into all the top schools. These are a few logos that we happen to put on a slide. Last year, our clients got over $4.5 million in scholarships. This year, we are trending higher. So we'll see once round 2 comes back what that number looks like, but it's definitely trending higher. So we'll be well over 5 million. We'll see how much it is at the end of the year. But we're seeing like 20 to 30% jump in scholarship dollars over the last year. So what can we do? I'll give you a little bit of sense of what we do. I'm not going to go through a whole pitch. That's going to reserve for if you are interested in working with us. You can send me an email at scott@personalmbacoach.com or click on www.personalmbacoach.com. Definitely, subscribe to this GMAT Club YouTube, channel. We have a lot of videos on our website as well that you can look at. We'll have continuing videos on GMAT Club. But we do, private GMAT, GRE, and executive assessment tutoring. We help through brainstorming, story development, essays. Again, we have former admissions director on our team. We have graduate professors that help with essay editing, former interviewers that do interview prep. So really, full service from start to finish. And you can get access to me and work, directly with the founder throughout the process. Here's a guide that you can download if you want. We have a Kickstart guide, which allows you to think about what you want to be doing to improve yourself between now and when you're ready to apply to schools. This is a decision-making guide. So MBA decision-making guide if you're not sure what types of programs you want to apply to, or when is the right time to be applying to these programs. So this is the presentation. I'm going to flip back to the questions now. In case anyone has questions, please feel free to post. And I see we have a lot of questions. So very good. First, I see, hi, anyone here? Yep, I think we were here. Okay, so is this session for MSc as well or only MBA? Yes, so Legend, awesome. Hopefully you're still here and you're still listening. We do a lot of work with specialized master's programs. And these examples were for M7, so that was MBA programs, but a lot of our folks are applying, to specialized master's programs. So, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and happy to answer them. Okay, running it. Oh, cool. So I had another client that was running a dairy farm. Actually, 2 farmers, and 1 person working on farming technology. So, question is, hello, sir. I'm running a dairy farm in operation, recognized in my city. And career is value and company. Question is, does B School consider my story or not? I would say yes. I mean, from what I know, certainly. Like I said, we have folks that had similar backgrounds and they've done well. What's important if you have, let's say, a different type of experience than the average applicant, which is fine, you just have to try to translate that experience into what admissions directors might be looking for. So are you working with different people? Are you creating, quality improvement plans? Are you helping to regenerate XYZ? But yeah, I mean, this can definitely be an interesting profile. So certainly, Daria, feel free to reach out if you want to talk further. But I would say yes. Okay. Will there be recorded? Yep, this will be recorded. Okay. Then we have from Kunal. Does coming from a family business background put you at a disadvantage with such schools? Absolutely not. We have a lot of people from family businesses every year. I don't know why they find us, but I talked to 2 family business folks this week alone. Definitely does not put you at a disadvantage. Now, a couple things to note. First of all, Kellogg has a very specific family business focus. So Kellogg is a great school. Columbia is pretty good for family business. So these are programs that are catering to family businesses. Also, you really want to think about what you did for the family business. Now, one of the reasons I get excited about family businesses, I guess there are a few reasons. One is typically if someone is working at a family business, they have a lot of leeway in terms of their title and responsibilities. And that's good because if you're working at a large company, maybe your boss tells you what to do and that's it. And you can't change things. If your boss is your mom or your dad, perhaps you have a little bit more leeway. So if I tell you that you should be doing certain things that are a little bit different than what you're doing now, and I'm pretty strong in my opinion, maybe you have the ability to actually make those changes. Also, family businesses, if they are really successful and you come from wealth, might just, make you look a little bit more attractive to a school. Perhaps then you have 100% job placement after graduating because you can go home to the business and maybe you have a real story. Perhaps, you're working in a business that has operated in a certain way for many years and you want to learn a lot of content to be able to go and take it back to the business and help it to operate in a whole new light. I think it could be a really good path. What you have to focus on is making sure that you show a lot of different experiences, and like you can't get dad to write a letter of recommendation. So those are things to think about. Okay. So then Kennedy, my question is with regard to scholarships. Where in the application process does one bring out the need for a scholarship? Well, I would say nowhere, honestly, because the way scholarships work, so there are 2 different ways that scholarships are awarded. One is based on need. And by need, if you mean financial need, as in, you're just not able to afford the school now, there's a whole separate process that has nothing to do with admissions. Once you get in, then a school will have, their certain process for giving you either money or loans or something like that. And they evaluate your income, they evaluate your savings, and they just match it up against what they think that you should be expected to pay. So there's nothing really you need to do. You just fill out a bunch of paperwork. If it's merit based, so have nothing to do with your money, but just how good you are as an applicant, then there's a whole process for merit based, and basically it's like how good you are as an applicant. So a lot of our clients get scholarship dollars, and the reason why we get much more money than most places and than most other sources out there is based on the quality of the applications. So if you want to get money, write a really good application. Have it be very specific to the school. Also get some good kind of scholarship dollars as well. And again, a reminder: make sure to like or dislike this. Let us know your feedback on this session. Now, second question: what are the determinants for scholarships? Is it the essay or the GMAT? You read my mind, Kennedy. It's both. Those are the 2 biggest determinants. So having good essays, having a good GMAT score. I was chatting with one of my admissions director friends recently, and we talked about really like you just need to make the school better. So if you think about it, a school is trying to buy you. They're trying to say, come to us. We really want you. Here's money so that you come, which is kind of interesting if you think about it, because this whole process involves you applying to a school and spending all this effort to try to get into the school. And now the school is going to pay you to come. Well, there's competition for that money. And that's why often we'll work with applicants that maybe can get in on their own. Maybe they can't, but they think they can. Maybe they can. But then if they really want scholarships, they need to work with us to perfect the profile to try to get there. So it could be your, honestly, it could be your personality. We had a client, one of my friends, really good friends now, and clients, Puneet, and Puneet does other videos for us, and so you'll see her in different places, especially for part of Forte. But she's fantastic, and she has this personality that is just like, really, really strong. And I feel like one of the reasons why, she got a full ride to Booth was because of her personality. Like, they just love her. And I think that was really, really important. So it doesn't have to just be, it's not like, oh, you need to get a 780 to get a GMAT. You need to be adding to the school in a positive way. And if you're just looking kind of like other people, and if we get bored thinking about you, that might not be the case. But if we're really strong on the writing or the personality or, the GMAT or some combination of all those, hopefully, that's when you can, perhaps do well. Okay, so another question. With regard to extracurricular activities, would lack of activities negatively impact the application? So first of all, just a reminder, GMAT Club is offering 7 days access to GMAT Club tests to YouTube subscribers. And so you can click on the link and get that, and that's it's a really good source. So then with regards to extracurricular activities, would lack of activities negatively impact the application, considering one can demonstrate leadership capacity at work? I would say yes, unfortunately. Extracurricular activities are an important part of this process. If you don't have them, that's not great. Someone else will have activities and they will look a little bit better, right? Because based on what I said before, the school wants to know that you're a positive contributor to the community. And we have a whole early planning package that's designed to specifically help people to improve their extracurricular profile. And it's very popular. So if you feel like you might be weak in extracurriculars, reach out and we can talk about that. But I think it's important to try to fill in some of these gaps. You don't want to be someone that has an excuse and says, oh, I was busy working, so I didn't have time to do activities. We have clients working 110 hours a week. So I don't know what your work schedule is, but there's a wide range of work hours, and someone's going to beat you. Someone's going to beat you, and so you don't want that to happen. I would try to fill in that gap. That said, it's not the end all be all. People definitely get accepted without having perfect extracurriculars and without solving world hunger. They still get accepted. I think that's the same question. Does not having any social volunteering experience hurt your chances? I think that's the same question. So I won't go over that again. Sir, the turnover by family business, does the turnover matter to AdCom if it is small or large? I would say it does, right? The turnover does matter. And for those of you not familiar with turnover, it's just like annual revenue. So the turnover matters because, it's important to think through like what you're doing and how broad your experience is, right? And yes, as noted here, feel free to get in touch with me. My email is scott@personalmbacoach.com, and feel free to send a note. This matters for a few reasons. One, if it's a large, successful business with, 2,000 employees and $1 billion, one of the first things I ask clients who have family businesses, what's the revenue? And I say it's all confidential, but I say what's the revenue, because that it just shows me what you're doing. If you're working for a family business that sells, and I'll use an extreme example, of $1,000 of revenue a year, you're probably not doing that much, right? You're probably not really interacting with a lot of people. You're probably not managing people. You're probably not fundraising, creating business development partnerships and like doing a lot of things. The larger a company is, the more likely you are doing a little bit more, but it's not necessarily apples to apples. You could be part of a, $7 billion family company and you don't do anything. Or you could be part of a company that's $200,000 and you've created it from the ground up. And you've done everything. You created the lease negotiation. You sourced providers. You did the build, and maybe you're better than that $7 billion person. So it's not the only factor, but it is a factor. Okay, let's see what else. Do you cater for EMBA admissions as well? Yes, definitely. So I have a lot of executive MBA clients. I was just talking with one yesterday. The difference in service, between the full-time and executive. So it's more so difference in how we're projecting you as an applicant. The services are similar. I mean, some schools are more money because the essays are quite a bit longer for executive MBAs, but otherwise it's a pretty similar service. We're just focused more on you as an executive and how we're talking through your experiences. But yes, and we have EA tutor, so we have the best executive assessment tutor in the whole industry as well. So we can definitely help with the executive MBA applications. Okay, then we have from a 10. Hi, I'm working as a management consultant with one of the big 4 audit firms the past 4 years. I like your picture, by the way. Very cool. Recently got an offer as a product manager with a tech firm. If I plan to start my MBA in 2021, is it a good career move considering my position? My post-MBA goals are aligned with product management. Really good question. Thanks for asking this before just making a decision. So I appreciate that. That allows me to feel more involved in these processes overall. Sometimes people will make a decision and then they'll come back to me and say, oh, by the way, I got a new job. And I'm like, whoa, you just got a job 4 months ago. Why did you get another job? So I would say that if you're in management consulting and you got a product manager job with a tech startup, it really depends what that job is like. Because we have clients that leave consulting and go to business school, and those who leave, product manager jobs and go to business school. I think if you want to go to product management, I'm kind of intrigued by this, right? I feel like I would want to dive into this further. And this is something that I'd love to guide you through on a one-to-one basis. There's not a perfect answer. And, it's not like we're withholding services or anything. It's just, it really depends on the whole situation. We have folks that will have this situation where they'll get job offers and then I'll say, look, I don't think that's right for you. It's not sexy enough, right? It's not as prestigious a company as we need to be. But I'm kind of intrigued by this, and I would definitely say it's worth considering. At least based on what I know here. So I know this is when it is recorded, it's a strange time for some people, Friday evening for part of the world. I don't know how many people are live. I know most of you will watch it recorded later on. So if there's anyone else live and you have any other questions, feel free to reach out. Last time we had tons of questions. Otherwise, if you're watching this later, visit our website, send me an email, scott@personalmbacoach.com. I'm happy to answer anything that's on your mind. I'll wait for a couple more minutes before we stop this to see if anyone else has any questions. And then, let us know if you like the session by liking or disliking it. Okay, so I have another question. What are the chances for someone with 15 years of experience and 550 GMAT to get into an M7? I would say that's going to be tough. It's hard to give an actual percentage chance without knowing the full profile, but 15 years of experience, you're likely thinking about an executive MBA at that point. Not always. There are some folks that get into full-time programs with 15 years of experience, but not a ton of people. And then, 550 GMAT is quite low. So I would recommend you looking at the breakdown, the range for the schools and seeing both the 80% range, which shows you where you would be in the bottom 10%, and then the 100% range. And there are schools that, don't have anyone that have a 550 at all. So there are some schools where you just, might not really have a chance of getting in, and others where you might, but the odds are pretty low. So my advice is to retake the test, get private tutoring for sure. You really want to bump up that score, and then perhaps think about a hybrid of maybe applying to some full-time, but perhaps also thinking about some executive MBA programs as well. The benefit of going to the executive MBA route is you'd be surrounded by people who are just more experienced. If you have 15 years of experience, arguably, and I don't know anything about you, but arguably you know quite a bit in the industry, or maybe in many different industries. And if you hang out with a bunch of young 27-year-olds who are going out to party every weekend or every night, probably, you might not learn as much from the whole process. So I'd probably recommend a slightly different program structure for you, but happy to go over this offline. Which country is better? This is a political question. I can't answer this. Which country is better for MBA and post-MBA jobs? I'm considering UK and Canada. No, so in all seriousness, I think Canada is going to be better today because of job and sort of visa situations. UK is great. I mean, we have people applying to both, obviously. So, we have a lot of folks from India. They'll be applying to Europe and in Canada. And based on where they get in, that impacts what they ultimately, might do at the end of the day. But, um, Canada's nice. I mean, they give you 3 years of a work permit afterwards. So that's something that isn't necessarily guaranteed in other markets. And I would think about that. But we send a lot of folks. I just got an Indian applicant into ESA today in Barcelona. He's thrilled, like super, super excited. So just got that email this morning. And we send folks to schools around the world. So Vishal, can I talk something about CGPA to GPA conversion? Yes. Oh, yes, I'd love to hear that. If we can pass this on to everyone, post this video, repost, tweet. I don't manage our social. I don't know what all the social things are, but do whatever you can to share this with everyone. There is no conversion that's really done. Don't convert. Don't do it. I can't tell you how many calls I get, and we work with a lot of people in India, a huge percentage of our business. Can't tell you how many people, and I say, oh, what's your GPA? Or I say, what were your overall grades? What was the overall score? And I hear like a 3.2. And meanwhile, I'm like, your school does not have a GPA. Well, I converted it through X, Y, and Z. Don't convert it. Just don't do it. You really want to just focus on your actual number. And what's nice about this process is all of my admissions director friends and myself and many of the consultants, like we've just seen a lot, so we don't convert. We know if you're going to IIT Delhi and you get an 8.3, I know what that means. So you don't need to convert anything actually. If a school requires you to convert it, you can do that, but a lot of schools don't, and a lot of the good ones don't have to do that. So I didn't answer your question. So it really depends on your school. I have to know what school you went to tell you what grade is a good grade. For some school, an 8.0 is great. For other schools, a 7.5 is as high as you can get. And, so it really just depends on the school. But let's say like at a leading IIT, in the 8s is pretty good. And in the, mid 7s might be okay, but not so amazing. But for some school, the topper might be a 7.4. Okay. What increases the chance of appearing positive post MBA with regards to employment? Are international students at disadvantage with H-1B visa? No, they're not. So, if you're asking, will it hurt you being an international and needing visa? Absolutely not. I hate that you're asking this. It makes me feel bad as an American that this question is being asked, and there are a lot of reasons, and I'm not going to post this publicly, but in any case, I feel bad that you're asking that. It definitely doesn't hurt your chances of getting in at all. Schools are very confident that we will have a fine system of placing people into jobs post-MBA, and they do not discourage any international applicants. They don't hold it against you, the fact that you need placement. Now, you do want to be realistic with regards to what you might want to do post-MBA. For instance, if you are applying to a one-year program, and let's say you're applying 6 months ago, and so we knew that 1 year passed when you were applying, we would still have the same political situation, let's say, and you said post-MBA, I'm starting my own company, and I'm going to, hire a bunch of people to work. Well, then an admissions director might wonder whether you know what's going on, because you need to have, you need to have visas, you need to have companies sponsor you. So, it's harder to maybe start something on your own from the ground up. But, if you figure that out and you know the time period, then I think it's fine. The safe thing to do, if you're not sure what to do from an employment standpoint, is just to talk about maybe a larger company, honestly. I hate to say that. Okay, next question is, how much weight do professional certifications such as CFA charter carry? Yeah, great question. Really good question from GMAT Club, which means I don't know who posted it, but great question anyway. So I would say a little bit, but not a lot, honestly. All things being equal, if I'm, charter holder, then I'm probably a little bit smarter than average person, or at least I have some, experience to show that I know like analytics and, it's other classes and tests and things like that. So it's, it's definitely good. I mean, it's definitely a positive, but it's, it's by no means, amazing. So you probably spend more time studying than the credit you'll get, which, sort of is what it is. which schools in M7 value international work experience the most? That's a good question. I feel like they all value it. I don't know if there's a ranking, and I'm hesitating. So clearly, you get a sense that there's not a lot of difference. I mean, if you take some of them, you know, like Wharton loves international exposure. They do a lot. They have an exchange with INSEAD. But I don't know that I would say like Harvard doesn't value international experience and Kellogg doesn't value it. So I think they all really value the international work experience because what happens is you're really adding to the fabric of the school. If you go to a school like INSEAD, they're hugely international, right? There are a lot of people from a lot of different places. They're really exposed to quite a bit. In the US, I mean, none of these schools are really as international as some of the international players, but they try to be. And so the more international work experience you have, the more you will be able to make the school more international. So I think they all really value it. And I know that doesn't help you. So apologies. This one gets asked very often on the forum, who should go for round 3? Yes, exactly. You should go for it. You should go for it. No, but in all seriousness, round 3 is weird, right? It's just weird. It's small. A lot of people say don't do it. A lot of folks say, ignore it, but it's a round and it exists. So who's doing this, right? Maybe we should have had a whole round 3 webinar. I mean, we got in Asian male with a 720 GMAT into Yale for round 3 last year. It's not an M7, but pretty close. And did that make sense for that person? I don't know. I mean, he got in, right? Round 3 is filled with people that are filling holes that the school needs filling. So it's kind of hard to pick exactly for what school, what they'll be looking for round 3, to be quite honest with you. It really depends. You should go for it if you feel confident in your application. Just know that it's hard. I mean, it's harder from a number standpoint. Usually less than 10% of classes are filled up in round 3. The other thing to keep in mind, and my admissions director on my team, we were chatting recently about some new folks, and she reminded me, she's like, make sure that if you're talking to anyone around 3, and they get a visa in time, right? She's like, because often we couldn't get visas in time for people, when she was running admissions. So make sure that you can get the visa in time, and that's a consideration. Now, it's possible. I mean, I have folks applying round 3 from India now, and we confirmed with the school that there are ways to rush this and rush that so that you can get your visa and likely come on campus. But it is a little bit trickier. Okay, let's see. Okay, from Jeet, do certifications like CPA and an accounting background, is it a good thing in terms of diversity, or is it a no-no? I'd say it's somewhere in between. It's not going to be a huge thing where, oh, you have CPA, yes, we'll love you. You're an accountant, we need lots of accountants. It's definitely not a no-no. People do well coming from accounting. I would say, all things being equal, it probably doesn't help you, if I'm being totally honest, versus, let's say, other jobs like consulting or investment banking or general management at a large company doing internal strategy or something like that. But that said, we definitely have CPAs every year. Have a lot of accountants that get in and do well. The bar is the bar is a bit high, and so you just have to think through, what are you doing to showcase your ability to succeed as an accountant? And typically, that's what we do when we work with applicants. So when we do that, people do quite well. So I wouldn't worry about it too much here. Okay, a few more questions. Love the questions, so keep asking them. Hello, sir. Do courses in business analytics help? Yeah, absolutely. So, I think I'm hearing, if you take some extra classes on the side, some extra like analytics courses, is that going to help your chance of getting in? I think, Matisha, if that's what you're asking. So yes, it definitely can help for sure, right? Anything that shows analytics, finance, economics, statistics, like anything that's going to show your intellect can for sure help you to increase the chances of being admitted. Now, if you're asking about taking a full-time course and like a master's in business analytics, and does that help you to get into an MBA in a future year? I would say that might help you as well. It's not required though. So it's not really, let's put it this way, that if that's the only reason you're taking a 1-year program is to get into a 2-year program later, it's probably not worth the money. Take it if you want to learn the content though. All right, we're still going. How is a tier 2 college in India, such as NIT or IIT, looked upon by the AdCom? So we definitely have folks, from these schools that go to top MBA programs. You've got NIT. Look, I mean, first of all, which NIT are you talking about? But I think we have NIT, we've got IIT. As long as you're doing well in school, you can succeed. Now, some schools really heavily prefer IITs over an NIT, but we send people from a lot of different colleges. You just need to do really well. Do any of the M7 schools give feedback on applications they reject? Not often. It's possible. I mean, we've seen feedback given, but the reality is schools are nonprofits and they're not hugely resourced. It takes a lot of time to get feedback. So they just don't really have the capacity to do so. It's not that they don't want to. It's just that they don't typically have the capacity to do so. Thank you. Yeah, Matisha, thank you. Really enjoyed your questions. Thanks so much, everyone, for logging in. And especially, I know it's Friday night for many of you. So I was debating with my sister. We're looking at times and does that make sense, Friday night? And everyone's out. So yeah, so definitely really appreciate you taking the time to log in and ask all these questions. Business analytics course. I see. Yeah, so I think studying in business analytics, is a great. I mean, I definitely think it's a great addition to your profile. If it's a full-time program, make sure that you really love the analytics. Kenny, thank you. Thank you for logging in and for the kind words. I think if it's a full-time program, make sure that you really enjoy the analytics, because a full-time program isn't likely worth it. But if you just take a particular course, I think it's a great addition. So I think we'll wrap up here. Thank you everyone for joining. So much fun chatting with you all. I love doing these. Thank you, GMAT Club, for having us. Make sure to like or dislike, preferably like. I think that's better. And feel free to tune in to future sessions. And one more question that I'll answer now from Avi. So if you applied to HBS 2+2 and got denied, does it impact your chances of a full-time program? Not at all. It actually helps you. It actually helps you get in, believe it or not. So we have a lot of folks that did 2+2, then they got denied, they work with us, and then they get accepted. So it definitely doesn't hurt you at all. Thank you so much, everyone. Really enjoyed chatting with you. And feel free to get on our website, personalmbacoach.com, sign up for a mailing list. We send out a weekly email. You can unsubscribe anytime. I won't be offended. And it just gives you some tips and advice. And if you want to explore what it's like working with Personal MBA Coach, then get in touch. Send an email, and we can certainly, set up a session to tell you a little bit more about what we do. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the weekend, or if you're watching this another time, enjoy work or whatever else you're doing. Thanks, everyone. Take care.